This week we'll be covering the 16th through 27th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. Last week you looked at Amendments 11 through 15. This week we're really rounding out our study of the U.S. Constitution. This is going to prepare us to move on to the second portion of the course because, yes, believe it or not, next week is the midterm, so you're already halfway through the course. I know it's hard to believe. We'll be talking a little bit more about the midterm in just a moment, but for now, let's focus on closing out our study of the Constitution. In this unit, you're going to be able to identify Amendments 16 through 27 with some special stops at certain amendments along the way. You're going to learn how the amendment process works. After all, amendments can be added, but how does that happen? You're also going to be able to explain the difference between negative rights and positive rights by the end of this lesson. And finally, you're going to consider how deciding constitutional cases, how they're not always straightforward exercises. So let's take a look at our reading assignment for this week. And there's a number of pieces. Don't be intimidated by them. They're rather short and as a whole. First off, you'll be returning to the Constitution and going over Amendments 16 through 27. I have included supplementary information on the 16th, the 17th, and the 19th Amendments. From there, you're going to learn about the constitutional amendment process. How are measures proposed that become amendments? And here's an interesting point. One thing I want you to consider as you go forward. We have 27 amendments to the Constitution currently, but since 1789, 11,539 measures have been proposed. If you visit this link, you'll be able to see a breakdown of what those measures were and what they concerned. From there, you'll be reading another piece by Linda Monk from The Words We Live By, your annotated guide to the Constitution. And it's going to talk to you about what negative and positive rights are. After you read through that, you'll be learning about how the Constitution can actually be, it's not always easy to interpret, even if you're a Supreme Court judge. In this address, you're going to learn about how this particular Supreme Court judge reflected on how deciding constitutional cases was rarely a straightforward exercise. And what I want you to do is consider why that was so, and why it is so, and why it will continue to be so throughout our history. Once you read the pieces, you'll move on to our questions for this week. Once again, you'll select one to answer, and you'll respond to at least 2 others' posts by the end of the week. So that first post, as usual, again, should be made by Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Your responses can be made by Sunday night at midnight. So our first question is this. Select an amendment from Amendments 16 through 27. And then what I want you to do is to answer why you believe that the amendment you chose is significant. And I also want you to talk about how it altered perceptions of a particular group, a political process, or a cultural practice. Question 2 asks you to consider how the amendment process works. When you're answering this question, you may throw in your own thoughts about how good of a process this is, or if you have any questions about it, please feel free to post those in the forum. And finally, you're going to consider the final piece that you were given for your reading. I want you to think about why constitutional cases are not always straightforward exercises. Think about that. Consider these points. And then, keep in mind as we go forward in the future weeks how when we're going to be talking about some divisive issues, and we're probably not always going to agree with one another. We're going to continue to use those practices of being respectful towards one another. But you're also going to have some special opportunities to privately share your thoughts in upcoming lessons too, in a safe environment. After you complete these points, I'm sure you have questions about your upcoming midterm. The midterm is 40 questions in total. Half of the test is multiple choice, half of the test is true and false. All are related to the documents we have covered: the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the U.S. Constitution. As you begin this test, you cannot leave it once you begin it. It will be 3 hours in length that you have to take it, so you can use the whole 3 hours. And because this is an online class, you might have guessed it, you can probably pretty easily use any notes you've made, texts that you have had access to. So keep that in mind as you go forward. Midterm is not this week, it is next week, however. It would not hurt to begin going back over the historical documents that we have talked about over the past weeks, going back through different units. If you have any questions while you prepare for this midterm, please let me know. I look forward to talking about Amendments 16 through 27 with you this week, and good luck.